Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hi everyone, welcome to another video on the JayBee
Hello.
and Milly channel. As always, we are joined by Smash.
Hello.
And Rhianna, and we're also fortunate today to be able to speak with Roger Eschbacher.
Very close.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just giving you trouble. It's Eschbacher, but you will not. You're at the end of a very long line of people who have a very hard time with my last name. So, including family members. So, don't worry about it.
I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for joining us today. Roger does have an incredible career that we're really excited to speak with them about. So acting credits, including things like Friends, Dumb and Dumber, and also for their writing. So they managed to write 5 episodes of the Mystery Incorporated series, which we all really enjoy. So we're really excited to speak with you about that, including episodes, The Wild Brood, which is one of my favorites, and also The Her Dog of Horror. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess as Milly mentioned, there's both writing credits and acting credits to your name there. Was that always the plan, or was there one that you were drawn to, I guess, in the early stages of your career?
Well, yeah, from the beginning, I moved out here from St. Louis, Missouri, which is in the Midwest in the center of the United States. And so I'm out here now in California, Hollywood. And I came out here first. I ended up doing production jobs like production managing, production coordinating. I worked my way up to that from being a runner or a gopher. And but the whole idea was to be doing something creative eventually, you know, once I worked my way up through it. So at one point, I just I started doing small parts on shows that I'd be working on as a production coordinator or whatever. And I also took classes. There's a comedy theater out here called the Groundlings, and the name is based on, I think, the Shakespearean thing of like the louts and churls that would sit on the floor at a play, and they were called the Groundlings, and so that's what our comedy group was named after. And I took the classes and I got into that, and I met a lot of people who helped me get my first writing gigs, animation writing gigs, and also I got my acting agents, like my commercial agent and my theatrical agent, and that's the whole the gateway was through the Groundlings. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. Thank you so much. And I guess more on your writing work, you recently published the novel Ghost Star, which is labeled as a sci-fi adventure. Is there something about science fiction and writing that appealed to you?
I love science fiction, and ever since I was a little kid, I remember reading. We used to have these odd little vehicles that would travel around to the schools. They were called bookmobiles, and they would show up at our school. And I was like, as soon as I could get into there, I would be getting books and all that. And then I don't know how it happened, but for some reason I picked up what was a science fiction book. It was called 5 Against Venus, and I'm not even sure who wrote it, but it was a real sort of like old school, sort of like 1950s sort of thing. And my little kid brain exploded at the prospects of it. I thought it was so cool, writing about distant planets and all that stuff. So that's how I got into it. And then since then, that's pretty much that in fantasy, sword and sorcery, mostly in the fantasy realm, is what I it's what I read for pleasure, and so it was a natural that I picked both of those to write novels for. So I just love it, and I think if you want me to give the 30,000 foot view, one of the things I like about it is that when you're reading science fiction or fantasy in some cases, but science fiction mostly, you kind of like pull back from our sort of like real life experience, and it gives you a perspective on it, and it enables you to sort of like analyze and think about stuff that is going on in our world, whether it's, you know, topical stuff, but I mean, even bigger picture than that, to sort of go wide and go, you know, oh, that's why people act that certain way, or, you know, it's just fascinating to me. I love it.
Right. Well, I absolutely I'm addicted to science fiction books and movies and stuff. So
me too.
Definitely gonna have to check out your book. I'm gonna look into that once we're done here.
Please do.
Oh, I'm going to now for sure. But are there any genres that you haven't written for that you'd like to?
Well, you know, I mean, science, as you know, science fiction and fantasy, you know, are such broad, huge categories that you can. There's still tons of stuff within there. I mean, I'd love to do some post-apocalyptic stuff. I mean, like I said, I do Arthurian fantasy and sort of young adult a space opera science fiction. But as I was saying, you know, there's so many other genres that you can, you know, or subgenres, I suppose would be a more accurate term, that you can go to. So I give myself permission to explore any of those at a future date.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I honestly can't wait to see what you write in the future, because I'll admit I've been hooked. I picked up Dragon Friend that you wrote, and I was like so excited, and I've been hooked on reading that, and I'm hoping to finish it really soon. So I guess,
thank you. First off, thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My mum, she's also a huge fan of like all of your writing, so I think we've definitely got the perfect guest in here.
Well, how cool is that? That's so nice. Thank you.
Did you have any authors who you looked up to growing up that inspired your career in writing?
Yes, I would say early on, it would be people like H.G. Wells and Edgar Rice Burroughs, and then moving on up through like high school level, people like Frank Herbert, you know, with the whole Dune and all that, which is just an epic. Have any of you seen the latest manifestation of Dune? The latest Dune movie? Yeah. Well, okay. just flip it around here just for a second. I loved it, and I enjoyed it, and it was if you like the book, I think you'll love the movie, but you know, don't quote me on that. So.
That's incredible. We'll definitely be sure to check that out, because of course, like, we're also film fanatics as well, and I guess like upon like the fact of adaptations and everything, having both written, I guess, screenplays or teleplays, and also the novels that we've been mentioning just before, if any of those novels were adapted into a TV show or a movie, would you like to be the one to write the screenplay for that?
Absolutely. I would want to be. They're very particular and persnickety about that kind of stuff in Hollywood, in terms of, you know, who they'll you know, they have people they trust that they want to go to first for that sort of thing. But if I was ever fortunate enough that any of my books was optioned and you know, developed for a screenplay, I would be, number one, I'd be thrilled, and number two, I would ask that I at least get to write the first draft of the screenplay. You know, just because, I mean, as we're all agreeing here, we're all sort of like film buffs, to say it lightly, and so I would just want that opportunity to do that. So I think that would be so cool. I think out of my books, I would say the ones that would maybe have the best chance at getting you know, optioned and adapted into a screenplay would be Ghost Star, because it's real fast paced, and it has a younger it's a young adult space opera, science fiction space opera. And the other one would be the Dragon Friend series that Rhianna mentioned. I think that would be so fun, and especially, I mean, earlier things would be a little they would be leaning more heavily towards the science fiction in terms of things, but now with like and this is not in the same category, but like with Game of Thrones and all those, and The Witcher and all that being so much more popular, I think that Dragon Friend, the Leonard the Great series, I think it'd be perfect, especially for like an outlet like Disney Plus, so they're getting into more of that stuff. So who knows?
Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
Disney Plus are making so many cool things at the moment, so it'd be
Aren't they,
awesome to
though?
see them
Yeah.
have that take on that in particular. And of course, there's that kind of saying, write about what you know. And based upon that, if any of the titles that you mentioned before were adapted, did you ever at any point think about portraying any of the characters in the novels?
As an actor, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, obviously. It's one of those things that you always sort of dream about. And as in terms of what kind of character I would be, that would be another thing. If one of my books was optioned, I would insist that I was at least able to play a small part, and we could go down to like, a sentence or a paragraph, but I would have a small speaking part in anything that was optioned. So, which hopefully wouldn't keep people from optioning it, but you never know.
No, I think that's brilliant, especially with like all the kind of YouTube, this movie scene broken down, like when there's those hidden Easter eggs, like, and here's the author in this scene, like,
yeah,
that's just such a fun thing to include. So I'm sure that would go very well.
I think so. Yeah, they might go for it. It's almost like one of those things. Who was it? Is one of the Hobbit things. There's Stephen Colbert. Are you at all familiar with him? He does a late night comedy / talk show here, and he's just a Tolkien freak. He's a fanatic about and he's known for that. He's one of those things where like I know a fair amount because I love those books, all of them. I love everything about the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, and so I know probably more than my friends about stuff. But he's like one of those like scary people that will knows like the lines of kings from Aragorn on back and things, and you can recite them, but anyway, he got a small role in the Hobbit movie. I guess I don't know if he flew to England or wherever, or New Zealand, wherever they shot that particular scene, but he's sitting in a boat and he's got his head faced away, and I think he has an eye patch, and as a main character goes by, he's like follows him with his eye. And, hey, I'd take that to get in a Hobbit movie or a Lord of the Rings movie.
That is amazing. That's kind of a dream, I guess. Like, JayBee, I know when you've been watching some Scooby Doos, you've been like, oh, that's the role that I'd want. And it can just be someone sat at a table having a drink, and it's like, that should have been me. If that was done now, that'd be me.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. When my daughters, I have 3 daughters, and when my 2 oldest daughters were younger, I was working on a show called My Gym Partner is a Monkey, which is a Cartoon Network show. Yeah. And the producers, Tim and Julie Cahill, were very cool, and they had the character designers design 2 little panda characters that were based on my daughters, and they put them in a scene, which was super cool. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so sweet.
Well,
yeah.
One question that I wanted to ask you was, one of your first writing credits was the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. What was it like writing for that?
That was kind of crazy because, like you just said, it was one of my very first credits. So it's one of those things where, in any profession, you sort of start not knowing anything, and then you eventually, hopefully, evolve into knowing what you're doing. And that one there, I was the head writer, not for the cartoon, but I don't know if you saw it, but it was they had live action sort of like intros and outros and stuff with Captain Lou Albano, who was a professional wrestler, played Mario, and a comedian named Danny Wells played Luigi, and they were both great. They were, nice guys, fun to play with, and all that. But that's what it was. But there was a steep learning curve, which fortunately I was able to sort of keep a step above everything, learning how to do it, or step in front of everything, learning how to do it. But that was a wild show. And we had all kinds of fun sort of guest stars. We had, I don't know if you're familiar over there with Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, she was on there. Eve Plum from the Brady Bunch. She played Jan on the Brady Bunch. So it's a lot of sort of like, American actors, I suppose. Cyndi Lauper, people like that. So it was fun.
That's amazing. And kind of in your research for that, did you get to enjoy like playing some Nintendo games, any Mario levels or anything like that as a side point?
I did own Super Mario Brothers, the NES game, and which I gave away to the whole console and everything, because these days they're apparently worth some cash money, and so I played that a lot. I was not a pro at it. I was not all that good. So I had that as a reference. And then I was thinking the only other Super Mario Brothers experience game that I had any experience with is Super Mario Sunshine. With the shine sprites and all that. And that was only because my daughters, my middle daughter, Erin, is like an avid gamer. She's played you name it, she's played it, and is good at it too. But so I would sit in with them on that and Mario Kart and all that. But so there's a big gap between those two games.
That's amazing.
That's so cool. So there's a new Mario movie coming out, and sounds like there were some interesting choices playing Mario and Luigi back in the day, but have you seen the cast list for the new movie, and do you have any thoughts about that?
I have not.
Okay.
I heard about that. What's his name? Chris Pratt is cast as Mario, and I don't know if this is counterintuitive to you guys, but I think it's a great idea, because I think personally I love him in Guardians, and he's just got a real sort of he's just full of fun, which is a dumb way of saying it, but he's got kind of a glee to him, and a certain joy about what he's doing. At least that's my perception of it.
Yeah.
So which I think I think he's gonna be playful, and I think he's gonna do a good job at it, and I think he's gonna do a good voice and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not bothered at that. I guess some people are bothered, but I'm not bothered by that at all.
Nice.
How about you guys? What do you guys think?
We reacted to the trailer live, and we thought it was interesting because, again, like you mentioned, there's so much fun in Guardians and the Jurassic World movies as well. I think that's a big one that we like to see them in. And I think a lot of the community controversy was, that it was taking away from the voice actor that portrayed them in the games, and of course, the fact that Chris Pratt isn't Italian, people are having an issue with. But again, I think he's so full of energy that I think it'll be interesting to see what they can do with it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to agree with what JayBee was saying, and I think if you contrast Guardians with Jurassic World, they've kind of shown that they can act and do different modes. Ones, they're very funny in Guardians. I'd say them and Rocket almost kind of carry the movie. They're the ones that I'm more drawn to, and then in Jurassic World, it's more like they're the serious character, the ones that when something goes wrong, they're the one that you go to. So they've certainly proven themselves as an actor, I think. So I think they'll do well.
Yeah, I just think he's so much fun. I'm going to give him a pass on that. I'm going to give him, I'm going to say, okay, let's see what he does before I make any, harsh judgments on his abilities, because I think he's a hoot, and I think he'll do a great job. But hopefully, I'm not proved wrong.
I thought there was obviously kind of like a shock factor at first. It was like, not my first choice, but. I was introduced to Chris Pratt originally in the Lego movies. He voiced Emmett in those movies. And so I'm kind of like basing it off of that, where, he was just kind of a crazy, fun, animated character. So I'm like, hey, I saw what he did in the Lego movie. He was so much fun. So for that, I feel like gives hope,
Sure.
anything. So
well, you just know he's going to go for it, Yeah, he's going to give it 1,000%. He's going to go for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like with Chris Pratt as well, even in his interviews, he just goes for it. And if there's something he can like do something funny or creative with, he'll go with it, which I think definitely, I think he might do a good job, to be honest.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, definitely.
All right, we're gonna shift our. So first, ask you about kind of your history with Scooby. So we're gonna start with: did you watch any Scooby Doo growing up?
Well, I was alive for the original series back in the day, ancient history there. So yeah, that was I'm sure you know this, but back in the day in the United States especially, there was Saturday morning cartoons, and it was a whole block of, I don't know, several hours, let's say 2 to 3 hours, devoted to kids programming, mostly animated programs. And you knew that, if it was animated, it was for kids, darn it. And it was like, it was our province as kids, Saturday morning. And so when that came out, which I think it was in 69, I think 69, that was just like, I just remember, like, with science fiction and the bookmobile, I just remember being like, this is genius.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I watched it all as much as you could. And also, this was back in the day when there was no digital recordings. Now you have access to everything. So like, but back then it was, when it aired, that was it. Never to be seen again, with the exception of maybe it would be syndicated, or maybe the show would be played like as a summer rerun. So you'd have the main season, and then during the summer, when there weren't any new shows, a lot of times they'd rerun the previous season. And so, but if you missed it, that you were doomed. There was nothing. You could see it and you'd all be bummed, and you'd be like all jealous of your friends who had seen it. So but yeah, the original series is what I saw, and I loved it back then, and it blew me away. It was awesome.
Oh wow. I'm so glad that I grew up with where it's like I was on DVD or VHS and I could just watch it whenever I wanted, because I would be so mad at myself for missing one episode.
Oh, it was such a drag. You have no idea what a drag it was to miss an episode of your favorite show. So you would have, if you were on, having a vacation or going on a road trip with the family or something like that, you would be like, but I'm missing Scooby or whatever,
Something something I always used to find cruel with TV was that, like, the children's channels kept going even when you go to school. So I used to be sat there like, I've still got time. I'll get to school in time. Let's just wait. Let's just wait. And I used to get late to school just because I was like, I just want to stay and watch this.
You do these deals with yourself, okay, I'll watch for 1 minute, and then while I'm doing that, I'll be getting dressed and
So I guess that brings us on to the next question, which is, so you've stated in previous interviews that your favorite characters in Scooby Doo have been Shaggy and Velma. And what exactly attracted you to those characters to begin with? Do you have, because there was this Scooby Doo Value, and then there's like the Scooby Doo show and other variants of them. Was there a particular show which the characters drew you more into them, or?
Well, I don't know. In thinking about it, I think everybody in all the kids are outsiders, right? And to me, I'm always drawn to outsiders, people that are not the cool kids. Let's put it that way. And so I always thought that of those outsiders, of that outsider group, Shaggy and Velma were the most outsiders. So I guess this is just my perspective. That's what I liked about them, and I also liked Shaggy. He's a lovable fraidy cat goofus, to the extreme, and he and Scooby, I've loved Scooby, of course, too, but And then like Velma, just sort of like I don't know, these days are, in more recent history, we would call them a nerd girl, but, she was the smart, the smart girl. And I always, I don't know, intelligence always draws me in on stuff. And especially so like an outsider with intelligence, I'm in.
That's so cool. That's kind of stolen a question from Rhianna there. So sorry for that. But in terms of those characters, what were there any other shows that you watched before Mystery Incorporated to kind of get a grasp on why you like them so much?
No, I mean my the most experience that I have would be with the original series, which I loved. And then when coming into Mystery Incorporated, I just took my knowledge, and it wasn't like, that show. I think Mystery Incorporated was the plan, and I don't know if I was ever told this officially, but the plan was to take the sort of the aspects of the original characters, the fun stuff that we loved about the original characters, and sort of like develop them a little in there. So I was never like instructed to, make Velma more this or Daphne more that. It was just more like when I would, get the assignment and we would work through it and all this stuff, I was just always, to me, it was the Velma or the Shaggy or the Fred or the Daphne from the original series in now more modern settings where they have things like cell phones and mobile and computers and all that kind of stuff. A lot more and it wasn't heavy on that stuff, but it was just sort of like a technologically more updated version, which was, it's fun in its own different way. That's what kept it, you had the great older stuff, and then it was made fresh by the current setting, is how I would describe it.
So I guess more on Mystery Incorporated now that we've mentioned it. It is a show that we absolutely love, definitely up there with our favorite shows of all time. But how did you come to work on the show itself?
Well, animation writers and freelancers specifically are always looking for work. So, and you have your little network of people. And I have a friend of mine named Tom Shepard, who has a lot to do with a Robot Chicken. I don't know if you're all at all familiar with that. It's a fun and well-loved show over here. I said, hey, I'm looking for work, surprise. And have you heard anything? And then he referred me, he says, what you should do is they're doing a new Scooby, and you should talk to the people over there. So, oh, thanks, nice tip. And so I talked to my agents, and I had them set up a meeting with, whoever it was over there that was hiring writers. And it turned out to be Mitch Watson, who's just a very talented, very funny individual. And so I went in and I had a meeting with him, and we hit it off. He's a great guy. He's fun to talk to. We had a good time talking with each other. And the next thing I know, I got hired to freelance a bunch of scripts for Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated.
That's amazing. And when you were kind of preparing those scripts or anything, did you rewatch any old Scooby episodes? Was there anything you went back to, or that, I know you said that you were never kind of given a specification, but was there anything that you decided like, oh, I'm just going to watch that again, or?
No. and I say that with respect to your question, but I knew the old series so well that I knew exactly who I was writing for, and I knew and loved the old series. So I had that sort of internalized, I'm no Stephen Colbert about the old show, but I do know and love the characters.
That's amazing. And I know Rhianna was kind of saying earlier that you've said before that Shaggy and Valmer was some of your favorite characters, but how did you find writing for Fred and Valmer? Do you think that you enjoyed writing for them just as much, or?
They're all great. And one thing about Mystery Incorporated is that we were allowed, one would say encouraged, to sort of dive in a little bit deeper and sort of like discover, I don't know, sort of new things. I don't know if, I don't know how new, Fred's love of traps is, but boy, did we hit that one. We went with that, and we sort of like explored everything and just had a good time looking in on all that stuff. And yeah.
I think it was really good. There was certainly some relationships between characters that I feel like certainly developed a lot more through that series. So it was really good for that.
I'm glad you think that, because that was something that we hoped to came across.
Yes.
The episode, I think it was The Wild Brood, was, if it's the one I'm thinking it was a really good one for developing Valmer and Scooby, because I feel like we never normally see them two have a scene together throughout, the 50 years of Scooby. And then that one episode was really prominent for, okay, these two that you never see together, we're going to put them together and make it work. So yeah, that was
kind of fun. And I thought it was, I personally, as the writer, I thought it was cool that I was able to sort of develop that stuff. So and that's another perfect example of us going, being encouraged to go deep, in the characters and explore that sort of thing. So I'm glad you like that.
For sure. And kind of on a different aspect of writing the episodes, did you find it at all difficult to try to write an independent episode that also pertained to an overarching story?
Actually, no. No. That was that was actually really nice, because people like Mitch and Michael Ryan and Tony Cervoni and Spike Brand, they all were the guys that they did everything, of course, and wrote individual scripts on it, but their authority was most strong in the 2-season story arc. And so they were like, that was what they were thinking about all the time. And then this ties into that, and the planispheric, and this segment of the planispheric disk, and, all that kind of stuff. And they had all that things, because if you think about it, I mean, most of the other writers, other than those guys, those producers, were freelancers, which means, that you're not in the office that much, if at all. And you work out of your house, out of your office, and come up with stuff and do a lot of talking on the phone. But so it would be, imagine how hard it would be to come to just, out of blue, sort of understand what they meant, by this sort of story point or whatever, it was really tough. So I was, it was very grateful that those guys were using their organizational and comedic brains to sort of figure all that kind of stuff out. And, then, what we would do is, how they would do it is they would bring, I'll just speak for myself as to how it worked. And they would bring us in and bring me in. And while I was in there, it was usually Mitch and Michael Ryan. We would, we would beat out some stuff, and they would tell me, what they were thinking, and I would, contribute my little bit to it and all that. And the whole time we were talking, I would write, make copious notes, and then go home. And by the time I went home, it was very rough, but I had a very rough sort of outline of what the episode was going to be. And then from there, I do a more formal outline, and then you sort of go through first draft, and then second draft, and then polished draft. And so it was a very sort of a neat little process where and of course all the stuff I'm doing here is all the the fleshing out. That was the for me the fun part, and they had already figured out the story. And so it was just fun to it was fun. That helped, actually. A long-winded answer to your question, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That's actually interesting to hear, because I feel like At least I thought it would have been like more difficult. They were like, "Okay, we're at this point in the story, and you got to write this or whatever." But that's awesome. That was at least fun, and easy for you to jump in.
Yeah, it was. If I'll just finish up with just saying, it was liberating because they had figured a lot of that stuff out, and in a way, they were like, okay, in this episode, we're revealing da 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 da. So I mean, they would have that worked out, which is great. So I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, as a writer, you're grateful, that you're not having to, figure out a series-wide arc in your own little episode,
Right. Oh, that's great then. So this series also had an amazing cast, main cast and supporting characters. But in any of the episodes that you wrote, some of the kind of supporting characters that you included, whether it be the Wild Brood or anyone else, even Marcy, did you kind of have like a voice in your head for those characters and kind of maybe who you thought would fit the roles, or was it just kind of whoever they had just kind of fit your character?
Yeah, no, I get what you're asking. I mean, if you have the sort of like the series regulars like Patrick Warburton or whatever, like when you're told that that's who's playing this character, you go, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have to figure out anything. I mean, you all know what he sounds like, and so you start writing. You start channeling Patrick Warburton and doing that, or any of the other great characters. If it's just sort of like a minor sort of incidental, even like a per episode character, sometimes Mitch and or Michael would tell me who was playing it, and that helps. Anytime if it's a well-known person, a well-known actor who has a distinctive voice, and then that's like a gift from above in terms of making it easier to write that character in your script. So that's a wonderful thing, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Good.
That's
good.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess to follow on, to what extent did you liaise, if you did liaise, with the voice cast of the Scooby Gang or any of like the supporting characters while writing for the show?
Not at all. Again, I mean, I know Mitch did a few voices. It's just weird when you're a freelancer, you're sort of out of the room, whether that's the recording room or the sort of daily production grind, so to speak. So I didn't get a chance to. I was familiar with all of them, of course. Frank Welker, all that. I was familiar with all of them, but. In terms of like going being allowed to go in and like sit in, it wasn't that I wasn't allowed. It's just sometimes when you're a freelancer, on some shows you're brought in, and it's always cool to sit there on the other side of the glass and of the recording booth and see people work and all that stuff. Like on my Gym Partner is a Monkey, to reference that wonderful show again. We got to, anytime we had an episode, the producers, Tim and Julie, were really good about bringing us in. And, if there was a question about a line or something like that, you as a writer would be able to, give some input and all that. But I regret, and I've thought about it, I regret that I didn't get to sit in on one of those sessions, but to be frank, I don't know how many of the freelancers did, to be honest.
Yeah, that does sound like it would have been a really, really fun experience, especially with some of the episodes that you've written, with all the kind of sequences in there. Would have been so cool to have seen acted out, but at the same time, it was just so cool as a viewer to see some of the amazing episodes that you've done as they've been presented. And I think one of the main staples of Scooby Doo is, of course, the monsters and the villains. And so I was wondering, out of all the episodes that you wrote, do you have a particular monster that stands out to you as being your favorite?
Well, yes, my favorite episode and has my favorite monster in it. So the Hodag of Horror is my favorite monster, and and the monster itself was cool, but it was just the sort of the episode wise, it was just such an insane sort of fun episode with a frenetic energy. It just moved, and so that's why I look with fondness on that. I think another monster. Let's see, Night on Haunted Mountain. Let's see, I made a note on that. The Dark Angel character on that. But I would say out of those two, I would say the Hodag was my favorite.
That's amazing. And was there an episode that you didn't write but that you really enjoyed? So it's one of the notable ones for you, or perhaps one that you enjoy kind of the premise of, that you think that you'd have enjoyed writing?
Well, I mean, they're all so good, and I'm not just saying that. They're all are sort of fun things. So if I did I have a favorite? I don't know. I would say it's more of something that happens on a series wide basis. I love the series. And so I think personally, and I don't know if this will sound hokey, but all the episodes are golden as far as I'm concerned. I honestly, I love them all. I really do.
That's amazing. And again, kind of on the writing perspective of things, obviously Mystery Incorporated was one of the first kind of Scooby series where there was that continuous plot throughout. So the characters were developed more. There was characters that were brought back in, like Mystery was, kept getting brought back in later and throughout the series. Do you think you would enjoy working on a Scooby series that didn't have those constraints of having to kind of further the plot? Or do you think that you personally thrived in having some kind of pragmatics a bit more?
Well, I don't know. That's hard to say. I mean, that's a very good question. I loved Mystery Inc., as I mentioned before, because of the classic characters in a new setting with a cool series arc to it. And I loved all of that. But would I enjoy writing for another Scooby series? Heck yeah. You bet I would. It's because it was so fun, and as I was mentioning, I love those characters from when I was a little kid. I love them so much that it was such a hoot and an honor. I mean, in a way, they're sort of like American television animation royalty. They're just wonderful characters, and it was a thrill, and as an animation geek and just a total fan of the series and of animation in general, I just loved writing for them. And so I would jump at the chance to write on any other series, even if it's the villain of the day sort of, and that's all it is. That's fine. I would be totally cool with that. It'd be awesome.
That's amazing.
I think they should get you to do one of the direct-to-video movies that they do every year.
That'd be awesome too. Yeah, I wouldn't. You should start a massive letter writing campaign.
Right? Let's do
telling them that. So, hi, Roger.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna do that. That's gonna be
all
our
right.
goal.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
But we gotta ask, what was your opinion on how Mystery Inc. ended?
I know. I guess I've heard that some people had a problem with it, but I personally did not. I thought it was reflective of everything that came before in the two seasons, and I think it was a very tidy sort of summation, and it sort of gave it gave the philosophical stand for what they were going for. So personally, I loved it, but I know not everyone did.
I think my main problem was that the series ended. I just wanted a series 3.
Yeah.
Football.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was like, I remember at one point after things had wound down, I was like, so, I asked Mitch, I go, so is there going to be any other thing, kind of like hoping against hope, but I mean, that was obviously the ending was the ending. It was not going past that. It kind of was that was it. And he's like, no. Darn it. Oh, well.
So I guess moving on to more about your future and your career and everything. Recently, we had the pleasure of interviewing Morgan Baden, who wrote the second and third Daphne and Valmer novels. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but
I
given
am.
your background of writing, what did you think of them? Sorry, it's a little bit of a side question, but if you've read them, what did you think?
I don't know. I'm all for them. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a fun, fresh take. There you go, right there.
Got it right here.
Yeah, I have no complaints about him. I think she did a very good job. I think she's a good writer, and I think she really came through and like told a fun, fresh story, And so no, I have no problem with those at all.
I think it's really interesting as well that like one thing that I like about those books is that they're set in Crystal Cove, because I feel like
Yes.
the Mystery Incorporated kind of time revamped, almost like brought Scooby forward in a way that I really enjoyed. So JayBee and I went a few years without watching Scooby and then kind of rejoined to watch Mystery Incorporated. And it was like a big step forward, and we're like, okay, it's a step forward, but it's one that I really appreciate. And I like that it's progressed.
It's still familiar though, where everything you loved about, for me, it's like everything you loved about the original series in this whole new exciting step forward, as you just said.
Yeah, and I feel like Crystal Cove for me is what signifies that step forward, because I feel like her books also try and go on that step forward, and Mystery Incorporated certainly does, but like you say, with the reassurance of like the cast kind of almost villains as well, with the unmasking and things at the end, there's so many things that resonate with you as an old Scooby fan, but also in the new era as well. So yeah, for me, Crystal Cove, and obviously it was in the book and the series as well, so
right, yeah, I agree, definitely.
Well, and even the next movie that we're going to be reviewing here on the channel, Happy Halloween, that whole movie takes place in Crystal Cove.
Copycats.
It was like the start of an entire new era, I think, with Scooby.
No, I think that was so fun. Again, part of the thing I loved about it was exactly what you just said. Allow me to quote you. No. I love that it was set in Crystal Cove, and I loved exploring and what that meant and all of that. So yeah.
That's amazing. And given your background of writing amazing books and all of the episodes of Scooby Doo that you wrote, we just loved, would you consider writing a Scooby Doo book? And what kind of story would you want to tell? And would you set it in Crystal Cove, since you loved it so much?
I think I would set it in Crystal Cove. Again, I think another letter writing campaign is in order to the publishers of the book. So allow me to just put that out there. And boy, in terms of what kind of story I would tell, that's interesting. Usually, I don't know how it works in animation a lot is your agent will get you in on a certain show, and you go and you have a meeting with the story editor and or producer, and they'll give you maybe a series Bible, which is arbitrarily, let's say, papers stapled together with 10 to 20 pages with the artwork in it, and sort of what the philosophy is, explanation of the setting and all that stuff. And you'll go home with that, and then you'll sit there for a day or two, and you'll just come up with premises, right? And Daphne does this, whatever. Daphne gets a new hairdo that scares everyone. I don't know. I never pitched that, just so but and then you send it in via email usually, or sometimes you go in and you pitch in person. And that's how it works in animation. And I think that would be the approach that I would take with one of the novels. I would want to go and talk to the editor or the publisher or whoever was in charge of all that stuff, and see, because they'll generally have a direction. And as a writer in animation and in publishing, well, a little less so in publishing, but definitely in animation, It's what the producers and the story editor's idea is that sort of like sets the tone and all that. And then it's your job as a freelance writer or staff writer to then take that and flesh it out. So I would want to get sort of like, you know, because what it is you'll get the golden, like, here's a direction we want to go into. Oh, okay. Oh, that's good, because, and then you can think about it and develop it. So I think that's how I would approach it. So I guess that's, again, my extremely long-winded way of saying I don't know what I would go in with first, you know, on a story like that. I would sort of want to go in there and feel the room and see what direction, you know, okay, now we're going to do you know, Fred and Scooby and Shaggy, you know, we're going to link those guys up and we're going to go in here. So, okay, you know, what can we do with that?
That would be amazing. Like, I mean, I'm already reading most of your books anyway, but I would 100% read any novel or book that you did, especially if it's about Scooby. And I guess, unfortunately, unless anyone else has any questions, you know, we're on to the last question. And first of all, thank you for coming on here. And I guess, do you have any future plans that you can share to us, your fans, all the listeners that may be coming up or you're planning on doing soon?
I can't talk about anything. I will say, though, there's been a number of things over the course of the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff that, you know, were floated and in the air and looked good and then went away. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's going on right now. So I would say that's sort of the zone that I'm in terms of like future projects. And so in the meantime, what I'm doing is I'm working on my books, which I love to do. So it's like it's not a bad thing. So, but you know, I'm sorry, I'm working on the sequel to Ghost Star, working on that, writing that. So I'm having fun with my books and kicking over every rock I can to get some more animation writing work, because I love that.
That's amazing. And we are looking forward to seeing, you know, the future upcoming products of what you're doing, what you're writing. So yeah, that'll be really exciting to see. So did anyone else have any other questions?
No, I'm good thinking. I guess all that's left to do now is if you have any social media that you'd like to promote here today, or that you'd like to direct people to, so that they can keep up with any of your upcoming projects at all.
Well, two of the good ways to do that are Twitter at Roger Eschbacher, one word, of course, and let's see, I'm on Instagram, I think is also at Roger Eschbacher, or maybe not. I'm on it. Just look up Roger Eschbacher, you'll find it. I've got a webpage, rogereschbacher.com. There's a common theme through all these, and and also, oddly enough, LinkedIn, which is considered by many to be just a dull sort of like resume on steroids sort of a site. I actually get a fair amount of work and sell a fair amount of books off of there from people. So I guess it's because maybe it's kind of like nobody else is posting interesting stuff. I don't know. That can't be right, but maybe it's something like that. I don't know. So yeah, I'm just look up Roger Eschbacher on any site that you will. I'm not on TikTok, oddly enough. But yeah, I'm on a lot of stuff. Just look up my name and you should be able to find me.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. So links to those will be in the description below, so you can follow what upcoming projects and everything are going on. Again, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. It's been great to be able to speak with you. So yeah, thank you to everyone for listening, and for future interviews and also the Smash or Pass podcast where we're going over the Scooby movies, then please like, comment and subscribe to JayBee and Milly.